Hi everyone. Happy Friday. I'm in a new place. Let me make sure I did this right. Okay, I'm on my phone. I'm actually at outside a pool. My parents are members of this community pool in the East Bay of the Bay Area. And we've got like a lovely day today between some crazy like winds and rains, and like today was just so much better. So Rachel and I have just been working here today just like for a change of pace. And if I look over here, it's because I have my laptop here and I can see folks. I am hoping the stream works okay. I have it going. I'm not actually can't quite tell what it's going through, but let me know if you can hear me because I'm. It looks terrible on my computer here, but it should be better on your end. Um, so it's Friday, so 1 week after our April beatbox shipped. So like it's time to unveil the April box. So I'll show you some of the goodies, but I've picked out a few to focus on today for an April garden necklace design I came up with. Um, I mainly design the focal piece of it, and then we'll get to kind of to finish off I'll show how to do that, and then we'll finish off the rest of the necklace together. Um, we definitely have some factors like outside of my control during this stream, such as internet. Fellow shared people I'm sharing this space with, either a child could run up to me and say and ask what I'm doing, or someone might ask and I will have to talk to them. That's okay. So just expect um, anything today, and we're just gonna go with the flow. We're on Facebook and YouTube streaming right now, so if you like to see the comments, I think there's more folks on Facebook. It looks like. If you like to chit chat, I definitely recommend going to Facebook. I hope folks have gotten the idea is that I hope my sister's going to go for a swim. I hope folks have gotten their box by now. We've given it a week, so I know a lot of folks, especially folks in the US, have gotten their box. Very exciting. Jesse's in the comments. Hi, Jesse. So now we're going to start playing with the box and kind of see what we can come up with. I'll flip it around my camera in just a moment, but I feel like I had other updates I wanted to talk about. See, Rachel and I were just like e-box planning today for the next few months. We've got some cool ideas coming up for some future themes. What else is going on? Oh, we signed a lease on an apartment, so we're officially gonna be moving in together next month. That feels big and so nice. I'm gonna catch up on some comments here. Okay, looks like I'm good. Just before I started the stream, some kids started a very loud game of Marco Polo, and I was like, this seems fitting for where I chose to do this stream from. They have since paused. I give it a high likelihood that it'll start up again. So if you hear chatter in the background, children screaming at the top of their lungs, just know that there's some joy happening over here at the pool. Yep, there they go. So we're gonna join them in their pure joy, and we do some beating of our own. So I am going to take myself off the stream for 15 seconds while I flip the cameras around, kind of move the phone onto this tripod, and I'll be back in 1 second. Alrighty, testing. We have done a full 360 to 180. and it's time to jump in. So, for this Secret Garden necklace, I immediately gravitated towards the full strand of fluorite we included in this box. This is one of our feature items, and it's a lovely mix of light green and some purple. The Marco Polo game has started again, maybe. See, we're all having fun today. Hopefully it's not too loud. I put the mic on my AirPods, but I can also change it to my phone mic. So I wanted to design around this, and this, I think the fluorite really ties together the box nicely because some of our main tones we've picked out were purple tones and then some various greens. We went for a lot of like this emerald glass, there's some emerald nugget chips, some larger leaves, and then the one I'm really loving for this one are the little bellflowers. And so I started designing around those two main colors. But I don't think I'm going to be involving too many of the blues that we also included in the box and focusing more on this side of the palette because I think they look really, really nice together. Okay. So here is where I have started. I grabbed a tier cast link. It's like semi-curved, so it's probably meant more as a bracelet bar. But I thought it could make a cool focal piece because there's so many places to connect to. So right there, I've got one of our table gut hibiscuses, some of those large melons, and then I made a cluster of emerald bellflowers. And that just kind of has a nice, I like how everything kind of is falling in a very free-flowing way. So I want to keep that theme going for the rest of the necklace. My plan is to connect a strand to either side of this connector. The second option being that I could put another jump ring here and make it the focal, but I don't think it'll be quite as secure. So what I'm kind of envisioning, and we're kind of all the designers for the remainder of this piece, but I have ideas, is that I want some more dangles on either side of the fluorite, maybe accented by some of the more of the bellflowers to unify it all together. And then, let's see. I really like that these melons are the same size as the fluorite, so I want to mix some of those in. And then, I always start my project with a million ideas and then have to figure out what will actually work. I was also experimenting with the center jeweled flower and creating two connection points, making it into a connector. And that's another possibility I could see mixed into the piece. So that is where we're starting today. I hope you will beat along with your box and see what creative inspiration strikes. I'm going to angle my camera way over here, so hopefully I have a chance of being on camera. If I go off camera, we need to come up every class with a code word to yell at Sam so that he goes back on camera. Ow. That's the nice got poked by the middle of a flower. Okay. So I'm going to start with going through how to put some of this together. Nothing too complex. I definitely had it more complex because this center jeweled connector was there in the middle, but I didn't think it had the color combo I wanted. I really was going more for the purples and greens versus the pink and green. So we'll start here, and I'm happy to show that technique later. Naomi says, how did you make the flower into a connector? Yeah, we will definitely go through that. That's one of the techniques that will be helpful. So we'll start here, and then I'll show that technique next. Because then everything from there is going to be whatever we want it to be. So to start with our clusters, we're gonna need a whole bunch of head pins. And I was experimenting with a few different gauges because I've done the knotted head pins in a bunch of gauges by now. I learned these, of course, from Sarah Lovecraft, and they come in very handy when you don't have head pins around. And I think for these guys, I decided the 22 was what I wanted. They had a nice sturdiness to them. The 26 felt way too thin. It was very hard to work with because of how flimsy it feels. And then the 20 gauge felt way too thick. So I'm gonna grab my 22 gauge. And we just need some small sections of this. You don't need much. Just like a couple inches each. For this cluster, I used 6, and then I needed 2 more for the remainder of the focal. So we're going to need 8 total, and the more you do these knotted head pins, the easier they get. I did experiment with a double knotted head pin using 2 wires, and it actually works. I think this was one where I used a wire folded in half, because I was curious if I could have 2 wires in the back. It didn't become what I wanted, and I found a better way to do it. But it is possible if you want your knotted head pin to have a thicker look to it. All I did was take a longer piece of wire and fold it in half, and then made the knotted head pin from the fold. It's actually quite fun. Alrighty, let's start making these. I am using this side of my round nose pliers because you see how it's just a little bit thinner, and I want my head pins to be on the smaller side. When I grab a wire, I'm making sure I am using the flush end. And you usually can see that this side is not the flush end. You can see a lot more of the copper showing through under that silver. It has like a little point to it. That's because a flush cutter can only cut one side of a wire flush. So you can always fix that if you want, come back in. And now it's gonna be a lot as flat as it can be right there. So I'm gonna use the thinner part of my pliers and bring those to the back. And make my 2 loops. Now all I'm doing is rotating 2 full rounds until I've got 2 full coils, and I've returned to where I initially started. There's a little point where I started, you can see. From there, you want to do a 90-degree bend. And you've got the start of your head pin. Take the loose end, bring it around, and insert it into your coils. I know a lot of folks already know this technique, but if you have not done one before, this is super helpful. So you just need to get it through enough so that you can then grab it with some pliers. You'll come in with your nylon jaws. There's a lot of beads on the table so that the camera doesn't quite know where to focus. So let's see if we can. And all I'm going to do is pull that through basically as far as it'll go. So you got to use a bit of force here. If you need a little extra leverage, just turn it. You should have a better grip on that wire. And I was able to pull it just a little bit tighter to make a really cute little rosebud. And then you can always snip that off. So we just need 8 of those for our cluster. So I'm going to try to go at kind of more of a normal speed. And the more you do it, I think I got them down to maybe about 30 seconds each. They start to feel a lot speedier. If you want to cut out this stuff, you totally can. And just use a head pin. A ball head pin is great. The thinner gauges are definitely a little bit easier to pull for this sort of step, whereas a thicker gauge wire is just gonna be a little bit trickier. But I have done knotted headpins with 20, maybe even 18 gauge when I wanted it. It is possible. Woo! I get a better grip with my flat nose here. I might disassemble part of that one so we could move it along, but I'll do a couple more of these while we're at it. So, taking my thinner part to the back. See how my thinner one is the top one? So when I turn my wrist towards the back, that thinner one's what's going to be creating the loop. Little coil, and then just do a little dance because do a little dance for your beatbox. Don't forget to enjoy it. I am just loving these. So those are definitely going to have to go into the strand. Come on. Alrighty. Also, if you have a little bit longer wire, it can be a little easier as well. I just didn't want to waste too much wire. Take something like that. And then I'm putting the open side of the flower down, so that's what hangs outward. You could totally choose to have it go the other way. There's no reason. But this just made a lot of sense to me. And take a look, see if there's any questions. Brenda, so Sam's Beatbox is $45 a month plus shipping. You can sign up through May 9th, and you'll get May as your first box. Yes, Brooke, you should be prepping all your knotted headpins. Alrighty, I'm all caught up. Annette is asking how was the concert. I don't think I shared the update on that. I think I might have been too sad when the announcement first happened. Our director tested positive for COVID on the day of our dress rehearsal. So that was a Wednesday. I left for the dress rehearsal, and I get to the rehearsal. I hadn't checked my email because I think the email had been sent maybe an hour or two beforehand, and I didn't even think to go check my personal email. And the assistant director is there, and she's like, "Oh, you didn't see my email?" And then another one of the soloists showed up because we had gotten there early for rehearsal with the orchestra. The soloists were each gonna have a chance to work on their solos. And so we both got there, and she's like, "Yeah, you guys didn't see the email." And we're like, "No, it looks like you pretty much just sent it." And they had known for a little bit. And they said, rehearsals canceled, and the concert is postponed. We now have a new date in May, which is nice. But at the time, it was sad. I had been definitely looking forward to that concert. It was kind of going to be my first solo thing back in a long time. I used to do a lot more solo work when I was in college. I was studying at Juilliard and studying opera performance, and you were just doing a lot more performing. Come on, knotted headpin. So sadly, that was postponed. And I gotta move some things around now in May because I was gonna be out of town. Because I'm doing that concert. I was looking forward to it too much. And I have some good news though. They do live stream the concerts because I think Brooke had asked, like, can we see it? Can we support you? Which is so sweet. And it actually looks like the answer might be yes. So if they still do like the live streaming for the postponed one, which is I get the sense that they will, I will definitely share that link because that'll kind of be my first concert back in like a couple years. I had done, yeah, my last main concert was like was January of 2020, which is crazy. But the show must go on. Rehearsals have continued. The director and her whole family are okay. Everyone was vaccinated and got over it pretty quickly. So I'm thankful for everyone's health and everyone's okay. And we got to stop by rehearsal, last rehearsal, to show it. She couldn't stay for rehearsal that day, of course, but she was testing negative and everything is fine. So the show will go on, and we now have 2 concerts at the end of around the end of April and early May. The full choir, which I'm not in, but they asked the smaller chorus to join in as some extra singers. They're doing a full Carmina Burana. And so it looks like I'm going to do that with them also, not as a soloist, just in the choir. And that piece is super fun to sing. It's very bombastic. If you haven't, I'm sure many people are familiar with certain parts of Carmina Burana. So that'll be end of April. And then like a few days later is the original planned concert that I'm doing a couple solos in with full orchestra. So I'm still very excited about that. Now we have a little bit more time to work on it. Maybe it'll be even better. Who knows? And the story time brought us almost to our 8th knotted headpin. Let's see, Lori said, did I miss how you did the flower? You have not, Lori. We're starting with the cluster focal, and then I'm going to show that flower connector, because I think we should involve that flower connector into this necklace. The whole idea of this necklace was I wanted to really feel like the box. So the whole idea Rachel and I were going for was the secret garden theme. We have more florals in a box than we ever have, and some leaves, and just some colors that I think felt very like mystical. I don't know, also just very calming, tranquil, and definitely like inspired by elements of nature. Okay, there is our last knotted headpin. So to finish this off, we actually now need to wire wrap all the others, but let me see if there's other questions first. Shire, it's at Hertz Hall. I'm happy to get you a ticket if you'd like to come. I can sing it for you. Do I even remember at this point? I haven't looked ever since I had like a mourning period when the concert was, when I like especially that first day when the concert was canceled. I was sad. I was really looking forward to that because it's like a different type of creative outlet. I'm so thankful for like having beading and having a more visual type art that I can do whenever I want. But there's something like that where like music is just always connected with me in a really like special way, and I had kind of been missing that and like that balance. And so it'll be nice. Hopefully, that I think if all goes well, the concert will happen. I'm looking forward to that. And we're still doing rehearsals twice a week, so I'm still getting like my fill of music along with the beads, which is lovely. I think I like enjoy the beads more when I have more variety. Geez, if that makes any sense. I mean, I think we all kind of feel that, like when you just have one main thing, or like it's kind of nice to have other things to remind us how much we like this. Like now I feel so much more refreshed, like doing even something like this. So what I'm doing is I'm coming in and making a wrapped loop on my bellflowers. So if you are someone who does more simple loops, I definitely recommend trying out a wrapped loop. It's not too difficult. I'm coming in with my round nose pliers right above the bead, and I'm grabbing it, and that's going to be the gap where all the loops, the wraps will go. And then you come in with your pliers. I'm making a smaller loop, so I'm staying closer to the tip, maybe about 1/3 of an inch, and bringing the wire as far as I can go. And I'm going to rotate the pliers upward, which will create space for that wire to cross under. You can make any final adjustments now to your loop to make it as nice as you can. And then everyone finishes it a little differently. I like to hold it with my flat nose pliers and then just bring that wire around until I've filled the space. I tend to prefer wrap loops because you can control them a little bit more easily than a simple loop, I find. With a simple loop, you have to do a lot more estimation, and I find that really tricky. Shara says she has the Carmina Burana stuck in her head. If you're curious what the Carmina Burana is, that would be the piece that is featured in so many car commercials. It starts with bum, oh fortuna, velut luna, and then it goes on to like semper crescis, aut decrescis, da 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 da. It's very intense. It's very fun. I've never gotten to do the whole Carmina Burana choral parts before. I grew up in boy choir world, and there's a part of the Carmina Burana that's done by a boy choir. So I only knew those selections of it, and it's kind of fun now looking at the score of all of the music and getting to learn all those parts I always like loved listening to, but we never got to sing. Okay. There's 5, so just a few left. You can lots of practice. See, all this could be a lot quicker if using headpins, but you would need to use a thin enough gauge headpin to make this, to do your wrap loops. And I do feel strongly about the wrap loops in this case, especially for clusters, to give it more likely, to reduce the likelihood that something's going to happen to your piece. Because anytime you use a simple loop, especially with a thinner gauge wire, which I had to use a decently thin gauge wire with check beads, the holes are not crazy big. Anytime there is an open connection point, it's another chance of the piece coming apart. So we're already going to have an open connection point with the jump rings. And by doing the wrap loops, we will cut our open connection points in half. I also just like the look of wrap loops a lot. They feel like very finished, cohesive, you know. You guys still can't see what I'm doing? Okay, I'm gonna back up the camera a bit. It's always tricky because now it's like in my face, but hopefully this is, if folks who have been on streams know that my nemesis is my own ability to be on camera while I demo. But I really try, guys. It's just not my strength. So just keep encouraging me, positive encouragement, and maybe one day it'll be as good as like Sarah's demos. Alrighty, our last wrap loop coming in with my round nose, bending 90 degrees. Gonna start my loop, rotate 90, finish the loop. Sometimes you need to adjust the loop back a little bit to make it centered. If Wanda were here, she would tell me a different wrapping technique that she prefers. This is my habit, so it works really. I like it, so I'm gonna do it. Make sure to always tuck in your ends. I think those sorts of details are really important. All I'm doing is coming in with my flat nose and tucking that wire in. It's also a good chance to I'm always kind of helping that coil be a little tighter. And those sorts of details also make a difference. Alrighty. So we're gonna make a new cluster. I mean, theoretically, I could just make an even bigger cluster, but I think I like the size of this, and this is where we're gonna head it. So we're gonna finish up this focal piece. So let's just start. It's easier when you're making a cluster to know where the top of it is. So let's just go ahead and make this top bead, and it'll make our life so much easier. For that one, let's see if the 20 gauge will fit through. I think we might need the 22. You never want to force wire. See, that feels a little tight to me, especially with glass beads and more fragile gems. You just do not want to force wire through because it will cause cracking. The weakest part of a bead is the drill hole. A bead would be much stronger without a hole, but then it would lose its identity as a bead. So I'm going to grab my 22 gauge, and this will work a lot better. And again, we'll do some wrap loops to keep things secure. So with wrap loops, you need more room than you need with a simple loop. This is probably more than I need. That's about 2 inches. And no different than those wrap loops I was just making. I just don't have a bead on there yet. See that little detail I just did there? That is so that my coiling when I start will be as in line as possible. Previously it was like that, so if I start my coil, it's gonna start off. If I kind of break it a little bit, and I'm purposely holding my loop very close down, so that when I'm moving this, it's not affecting the loop. Now, if you want even better grip to make your coil, hold those with pliers, and your coil should be a lot tighter as you bring it around. I tend to do a 3 wrap loop. I think is a nice look. The classic is a 2 wrap. You can do 7 if you like. So there's 3 coils. I just think looks nice. Wow, it is so lovely out here. It's like cool. It's definitely cool, starting to cool off a little bit as I lose some sun. I'm also sitting in the shade in an attempt to keep the light even, like on the bead desk. Like a glare of light coming across. But it's just so peaceful out here, and there's, I think, some fewer kids. There's just some people doing laps now. And now we'll come to the other side. I'm going to give myself more space, so hopefully I'll have room for 3 or 4 loops at the bottom there. If you're looking to kind of start selling your pieces more, I definitely say start paying more attention to the little details. I really think that they make a big difference in terms of how professional a piece looks in appearance. Because you might have like the techniques down, you just might not have some of those smaller details. You coming to visit?
I don't think I'll go in front of the camera.
My sister's currently covered in water from the pool. Amazing. How was your swim?
So lovely.
It's just got so quiet here.
Yeah, as you started, right when the kids all left.
Amazing.
How's your necklace going?
It's good. We're doing a lot of prep work right now. So we have all of our pieces ready, and we're going to start assembling the cluster right now, actually.
Awesome. Love those colors.
Me too. All right, let's put together our cluster. I've had these jump rings for ages. They are not nearly the quality as a TR cast jump ring, but I am also a big fan of using what I have. So I am, for now, going to keep using some of these, which I love that they came in this container. Idea Tracy and I had with making something similar to this with the TR cast jump rings has not left my mind. These ones are probably about 5mm jump rings. And you can see how they're not quite super well made. They're not very even there, but we should be able to I've been able to adjust that decently well. With jump rings, always remember to open forwards and backwards and not outwards. So this is what I mean by forwards and back, this way, not that way. From there, how do we want to do this? I think we want to connect to our flowers. So yeah, that'll work. We're going to go ahead and put on 2 of our bells and also loop on our flower. It's going to be helpful to have that flower because now we're always going to know where the top of our cluster is. Otherwise, it's really easy to lose track. Now, I'm kind of going back and forth a bit with that jump ring to make sure it really gets lined up nicely. And it's looking a lot better than when it started. So we've got 2 hanging, and that's just the start of our cluster. When we add to the cluster, we go between those 2 bellflowers there. So pick up your next jump ring. And here's the order. 1 bell, whoop, 1 flying bell. I told you this box might have some magic in it. All right, 1 bell. Then go between the 2 flowers and hook that on. Then your 2nd bell. Clusters are one of the first techniques I ever learned in wire work. I became obsessed. You could basically turn any bead. Come on, focus camera. I think I need to be a little farther away, so let's try that. And let's keep that right there so we can know that that is our next connection point. We'll go add on our last 2 bellflowers. Clusters are very flexible. You can put more than 1 bead per row. You could add as many rows as you want. And all those adjustments, the size of the jump ring, everything will kind of affect how dense looking the cluster is. If I were to use a larger jump ring, it would just be a longer cluster and look a little less dense. Maybe look a little less abundant. Alrighty, that's what we're going for. That itself could be its own earring design. And then these guys, nothing complex here. These are literally, each of these could be their own earring design. So if you want another little idea, these actually I think are a great combo. Let's grab our melons. I'm using the 20 gauge just to be able to do a simple loop on that. Because the melons, I noticed, have on the whole have slightly larger holes in the other check cloths. Don't ask me why. I mean, I have my guesses. So actually I don't even need this much wire because, okay, I'm gonna go in and again make that flush. And if you want to connect directly to your connector, you're gonna need a big enough loop to get over all that metal. So I'm gonna give myself about 1/2 inch of wire and fold that 90 degrees. And then I'm gonna probably come in about halfway on my pliers. And then you've got a nice simple loop. Go ahead and put on one of our melons. Don't forget to play with your beads as you go. Beads are toys, don't forget. And then I'm gonna go ahead and bend that 90 right against the bead. And we could do a similar size loop, why not? All right, see, that loop wasn't as perfect, but you know what? It'll be just fine. Let's grab one of our those. Connect that on, so we have one piece done. And just have to do that one more time. And then we'll basically be done with our focal. Let's see. About half an inch. Oof, that seems like a lot of wire. Let's see how that turns out. That loop might be just a little bit bigger. That's okay. We'll live. Just want to make sure it looks okay. It doesn't really matter which way the loops are turned for this because the only thing hanging from it is another bead that looks the same from all directions. So I'm not stressing over that. Anyone beading along with me today with their April box or on anything? I always know a quieter comment section sometimes means, often means that folks are just getting focused. Then from there, all I did was opened a loop on to one hole there. I grabbed the largest jump ring I had here and connected it to the middle of the lovely leaf focal that we had in the box. And then connected the second one to the other side. And that's going to be the focal of our necklace. Jacqueline says, I'm making your favorite bead with the April box. What? What, Miss Jazz? Deanna says, is this all beads from the April box? Yes. So everything here on my tray are April box beads, and this is not all of it. There's beads I want to involve, but just might not be able to. If we had 20 items in this box, some rose quartz in it too. That was another one of our gemstones. Was another gemstone? We had fluorite, rose quartz. Rachel, do we have a third gemstone in this box? What? Was there 3 gemstones or 2 gemstones in this box? Oh my god, we had labs in this box. I already cut my strand. That's all the way over here. We had some Indian cut labs in this box.
They might have even been graduated on the strand.
There were 5 pieces. I have 3 currently of it. Other. Yeah, there's a little bit of flash in that one. In better light, you could see some more of the flash. Alrighty, I know, but I literally, I remember buying those. Okay. Yeah, Rachel and I have some got full strand extras of the labs for our extra sale on next Thursday. Okay, y'all. Before we start stringing up this piece, I think we should go through the technique to turn your flower connector, center jeweled flower, into a connector. I've previously shown doing something just like this with one piece coming off, but it does look like it is indeed possible to do going both ways. I also like that it spins. Like, I find that really satisfying. Oh. Okay. So for this, I am going to use my thicker 20 gauge here because it will fit through the hole of your center drilled flower. Tested how to keep it from flipping over. We can have some control over that, Kathy, from how the loops on either side are laying. By keeping them, once we kind of connect pieces up, we'll know if it's turning, it's going to be the result of the loop and not the flower itself, because it itself can't turn. The whole thing would be turning. So we'll keep an eye on that. But that's kind of almost no different than another bead with those sorts of connector points. The only exception being that, yes, there's a back that doesn't look the same as the front there. This one starts out with a knotted headpin as well. Notice the theme. I think they look like little rosebuds. And you want to give yourself a little extra wire. So I'm going to give myself more than last time because I wanted to do some extra wrapping. I'm going to do about 18 inches of wire here. That should be more than enough. I'm going to warm it up just a little bit. It also helps to straighten it up because this wire is mostly copper. So we can kind of get that warmed up a little bit just by running our hands down it. And it'll make it a little bit more supple to work with. Can also kind of start the work hardening process, which also feels counter like they're different things, but both are true. So we're gonna start our knotted headpin the same way. And you'll see the look of that headpin will be quite a bit different because we're using a thicker gauge wire. You're really gonna see the headpin more. You see I have quite a bit of wire coming up, but it's no different. I'm going to take that loose end and put it back through the side it came from. See, now we just have a lot more to work with that we're going to be pulling through. So most of it you can pull through by hand. And to finish it, grab those nylon jaws and get that finished. Come on. You always have to fight the thicker gauges just a little bit extra. But you get a lovely result in the end. I'm just using some various wire I had from a local, this is the piece that actually doesn't exist in person anymore. This is just a copper wire that's been silver plated. So it's a pretty soft wire. I'm gonna come in with a daisy spacer, if they didn't go missing, or grab another one. Who stole my daisy spacers? The Incredibles line, where is my super suit? Ah, here we go. I thought the daisy spacer added a nice little extra detail accent on the center chilled flower. So I'm going to put on the daisy first, followed by the flower facing forward. And then it should stack up kind of like this. So you've got your rosebud, little daisy, and then that flower has that beautiful AB coating that we really get to see. From there, we are just going to shoot. You can choose a direction towards one of the petals and bend that as best you can, creating because you need that bend to keep all these things stacked up together, up towards the petal, because that is going to tell you where to make your loop. You want to make your loop just above where that first petal is. So I'm going to kind of grab it right above the petal, so that when I bend it, it should work out nicely. Alrighty, making a loop as if I'm making a wrapped loop. Except, we're going to pause for a second and kind of unbend it a bit so we can hopefully be able to wrap in there as much as possible. We're going to come in and start coiling. So we'll add some nice structure. And let's see where we're at. All I'm doing is coiling the wire against itself. This will ultimately be going up, and then we're going to have this wire continue downwards. It takes a little bit of finagling. So I'm pushing that back up to make sure things are looking good. My goal is not to coil all the way across, but just to kind of reinforce that with coiling. It'll add some extra strength as far as I found. Then it's time to bring this wire down. So I'm just kind of gently pulling it. I don't really want to undo my coils, but I do need to get it kind of in line and going downwards. That should be pretty good. There's some forgiveness here because it'll be also covered up by itself. So something like that. Go back towards one of the petals, grab it right above one of the petals, and make your second loop. I'll see where this is heading. You can then bend it out. We're only bending it flat so we can get a precise measurement. Now we're bending it out so we can have space to wrap it up again. Oh, you have some of the Jacqueline's commenting about my fave beads. I have them next to me even at the pool, don't worry. I have all my fave beads there, unless you were worried. And we're just gonna coil this down here, just the same. Really keep some good tension on that wire so that those coils stay nice and tight. This is really gonna add a lot of strength to this wire. And this is where I ran out of wire when doing this test one. I just couldn't get any farther than those 3 loops on this side. So this one should be a lot stronger because we're doing, there's like more, there's just more layers of metal here. All right, let's see how far we want to get this. I definitely recommend using decently thick gauge wire. I'm using a 20 because we need that structure to keep this bead in place. Alrighty, I'm kind of liking how it's looking. The added coiling makes a nice effect. So I'm going to do one last, bring that to the back, try to push that wire in a little bit. And let's see if we can get in there to cut the excess. See how this is all, there we go. See how that's all just a little bent, not looking so nice? Even some of the coils are like not quite next to each other. We can clean up our coiling, at least to a certain extent. If it was a shorter coil, I could kind of squish them together a little bit, but because there's just so much here, I'm not going to really try to mess with it too much. I'm just going to kind of rotate this, and it'll fix a lot of those imperfections, just squeezing decently. And from there, let's get our final result. I'm pushing it back down towards the flower. And we have our final connector. Let's give it a spin test. Look at that. This flower actually looks like, maybe it's just my eye playing a trick on me, but I swear this one isn't as centered. Like that petal looks smaller to me, but it's actually probably just my, I don't know why that, I'm probably optical illusion. So from here, you could just turn that into an earring itself. And that's kind of fun because it's kind of almost better than a traditionally drilled bead, whereas this one could turn and turn and turn. If you use this on an earring, you know that flower is always going to stay forward. So that's actually a big advantage of that sort of drilling. As always, you can turn those loops as needed. It's just slightly trickier than normal, but I can still come in and make my loops in line with each other. And that is how to wrap one of those flower connectors. Now we have 2 of them and can use them in our final design. I need to take a quick pause. Just for 1 second. Wow, we've been going for almost an hour. My goodness. I'm trying to see if I missed your question, let me know, because I want to make sure I get to it. I tried these from Whole Foods. It's the watermelon flavor LaCroix. Oh my gosh, it's kind of good. Unexpected. I'm into it. Alrighty. From here we can kind of figure out what we want for the remainder of our piece. I'm definitely thinking stringing. So I'm going to cut my strand of fluorite. And I want to have all sorts of elements just hanging down from the piece. We'll just spend our last few minutes designing the center of the piece and probably call it a day there. I grabbed some larger spacers. These should be like almost 10 millimeters, and I'm hoping kind of match with these larger 10 millimeter beads, because I think spacers are so crucial in design. We've tried to include them in the box. Like I've looked at the TR cast ones. Unfortunately, like just the pricing doesn't work. We'd only be able to give a few spacers. I don't think that's, I think if folks would rather have more beads than just a few spacers. As far as color, I'm actually gravitating towards this garnet colored soft flex. There's something about this red with the purple that I think looks quite nice together. As far as length, if this is something I'm going to be wearing, which actually fluorite, yeah, I'm going to keep going with myself in mind. I'm going to want at least like about 24 inches of length. So that's about a foot, about another foot, and then about 5 inches for crimping room. Yes, I cut my spool because I like to design my pieces from the center. I have a bead stopper, which I can go ahead maybe and put near the center of my piece so that I can just now design right here in the middle. So might as well start. Actually, you know what? We're gonna have to, I'm doing 2 different threads coming from this anyway, which changes everything. So let's put that bead stopper near the end, give ourselves a couple inches for crimping, and we'll design as if we're continuing up the garnet color wire a bit. So there's definitely too much length here, but I'm just gonna go with it for now. Let's just start with fluorite. I know that's what I'm gonna want. The question is how much fluorite. I do fluorite, spacer, maybe a lighter green. These are like this like smaller decisions that I always find take an extra time. Like, do I actually like that spacer, or do I want to come in with a different spacer or a bead cap type sort of thing? These ones are a little bigger. This is my old collection of findings. None of them are particularly high quality, but they do come in handy when I want some things to play with. These ones might be even too big. Let's see. See, it's like I don't want to cover up that much of my. Ooh, these could be fun. Oh, that's like not too much. I more ideally just wanted a spacer though. So then let me just grab spacers then. Let's just try a spacer then. Are we talking about LaCroix in the comments? Yeah, it's just sparkling, it's flavored sparkling water. Very refreshing. Also very colorful. All right, fluorite, followed by spacer. Another fluorite, and we can test out if we like the look of this spacer a bit more. I think so. We'll go with it for now. Don't yell at me if I change my mind. And I want to put on one of my melons and see how well by using 10mm beads together, they kind of fit really seamlessly together. But I hate the spacer. It's too big. I want a more subtle looking spacer. One idea I had was like, what about just a little seed bead? I found some little turquoise seed beads. If I could add some of that like garden brightness that Rich and I were really had in mind when we created this box. So let's try that. And this is probably the winner. I can feel it. I also think a little pop of color will be fun. These are small. My goodness, that looks like a tenno or something. Oh, it's a John bead item. Ayo, Danielle. It's an 11-0 check seed bead. Small. But a lot closer to what I'm wanting here. See, I think I like this because they look like little like bright blue knots between the beads, which I like that. The silver I'm sure would work fine, just as fine, but we'll go with this for now. We haven't committed to anything yet. I am curious, I'm going to want to mix any other beads into this mix with the fluorite and the purple. Are there other things that are going to want to be in the mix? One idea I had was one beadbox item were some of these cathedrals Jesse just put on the website, because they have that pink tone that it could be really pretty. I like it, but I want to put it on the other side of more fluorite. So let's keep going with more fluorite. Let's do a purple fluorite. And the nice thing here is we're basically just going to need to design one side of the necklace. And then I'll just be able to copy the rest later. If we wanted to still involve more of our little dangles, we could mix them into the strand here. So that would be, we could just hang it from our stringing wire. But I think I'm liking, I tend to wear necklaces that are a little simpler, so I'm going to keep going without extra dangles. And once I fully string it up, I'll probably have a better sense if that's actually what I like. I could always then come back from this side and add those dangles, and I'll have the rest of the necklace already done up. Okay, let's do, how about 2 fluorite beads and then a purple, 2 fluorite beads, then a pink. Look at what this looks like in person. No, I hate the pink. It didn't, like, it almost stood up, but then didn't stand, like it wasn't working at all. So let's just do 2 fluorite, melon, back to fluorite. Now we have our design. Just took us that long. Flores is disorganized genius. Thank you. You know what, today I'm taking that as a compliment. Had the word genius in it. I already know I'm disorganized. That's not news to me. I think beading has to have just a little bit of chaos involved. It's like part of the fun of it, of seeing what'll fall together. I could show you just fewer things. I could pretend like I was more organized and just take excess things off my table, but what's the fun in that? Okay, I'm really liking these seed beads. You see how subtly they're adding just a little bit more brightness to the piece? And I think that'll go really nicely with some of the bright. I really wanted to keep this focal bright also. Okay, I'm loving the strand. You see how just keeping the one size of 10mm beads, I think it's gonna actually make this piece look really nice. It's nice to add an occasional other accent to break it up, so you actually can like have some contrast. I'm looking through my piles. of items in the bead box and seeing what that could be. One idea are these are some 10mm pressed flowers, and they have some vitriol shine. And then maybe I'll kind of feature it by doing some extra seed beads. Let's say 5, because they're so small. And then one of these flowers. And we'll see how that looks. Just to feature one of those really nice vitriol flowers, and then we can kind of continue on with our 10mm pattern. I think it could work. It's worth a shot. I'm going to continue on with floral. I'm not going to go back to the melon immediately. I'm also would eventually run out of these melons because I have fewer of them. Aw, thanks, Anna Marie. I know, Anna Marie said, how cool is it, Sam, that you've progressed from being a novice wire upper to teaching a class? I know, sometimes I'm just like, obviously, like, I'm like mostly over at this point, my like fear of like, why am I teaching a class? Because like, I remember when I started doing some classes for the shop, mostly beginning of this year, I was finally just like, you know what, I have been making jewelry more consistently now for like 2 years. I've been doing it in some form for like 10 years with the shop, but like really starting to learn from like amazing people like Rachel Malice and Sarah and Neela, all these like Danielle, like just getting to learn hosting these classes and starting to make more things, experimenting with what I like, and kind of starting to feel more comfortable in my own skin around that. And let's find some purple fluorite. And where was I going with that? And so like I'm mostly over at this point, like over that fear of like, why am I teaching class? Because like at the end of the day, I've kind of realized like, I know I have something to offer someone. Like this, I'm not doing a particularly complex class because that's not the sort of design that I do. And you can find complex classes, like absolutely, go take, there's like all sorts of amazing classes you should absolutely take. But I've always kind of seen myself as learning alongside the community, as always, because that's just always how it's been. Like I'm also learning with everyone else, and it's really fun to learn techniques together. So as I kind of pick up certain ones that have really stuck with me, then of course, and then I feel much more comfortable just to kind of pass those on. Doesn't have, and even if it's in a simple way. I think I've always, one of my strengths has always been kind of finding beads that look nice together and that sort of curation. And that's kind of why one of the pieces I always have tried to bring to the shop is just finding beads that feel really special and then finding ways to coordinate them. So that's a piece I can definitely bring to my design. But then it's been over, especially the last couple of years, is finding the techniques that are possible to really kind of bring some of those beads together in more unexpected ways. And that's where I'm so thankful for folks thankful to all of our teachers who have showed us so many techniques and inspired us and shown us new ways to do things. And my goodness, there's so much more to learn. I feel like I'm still learning in wire work, and there's a million other mediums I haven't really delved into. Okay, on this side of things, I'm going to pause in just a second. Then we can see if we like it. And then we might call it a day, because we've definitely done a lot today. I've been kind of keeping an eye on the fluorite, because the fluorite is mostly green with occasional purples. So I've been trying to space out some of those purples throughout the strand. And then it's kind of nice having the purple melons to add more purple contrast to the fluorite strand. This, I especially like actually that vitriol side. Actually, it does feel kind of fun and adds a little bit more of our fairy garden theme. Okay, so see, that's our strand. And that's our focal. I think I kind of like it. So I'm going to go ahead and show the crimping on that side. I'm not going to crimp the back side quite yet, but I'm going to go ahead and crimp this so I make sure I've shown doing a crimp. I'm going to use some oxidized crimps because it should match pretty closely with my antiqued silver tier cast component there. Come on. Oh my goodness. There we go. All right. That's a 2mm crimp tube. And I don't know, hopefully these are the crimpers I like. I think I told Rachel which of my crimpers were my favorite. I don't know if she took those ones. We tried to order a pair of those fancy like Zuron ones that Neela uses. Let's see, I think we're just gonna crimp right onto here. But they were out of stock from one of the wholesale distributors, so we'll have to try again later. Because I want to try them out and then potentially get them for the shop because Neela swears by those Zurons. But I'm going to use my basic crimper today. So it's important to keep your threads separate so that you can then come in and start with the lower part where that tooth is to crimp the crimp bead, so that tooth kind of ends up going between the two strands. See, just like that. Now there's a strand on either side. And now we can come in with the top part of our crimps. Out of my way, pendant. And I'm just going to crimp that closed. I'm not someone who tends to use a lot of, give it a little test. Looks like that's pretty secure. I might just try to close it just a tiny bit more. And then if the beads are big enough, you can thread your extra thread back through them. That C bead's probably not going to want a second thread going through it, so I'm going to put it through one of my fluorides and then cut it off. And you should really see it. I'll catch up on comments in just a moment. I want to get us through this step. And so that'll be, the necklace will kind of look something like that, just longer. And that's kind of where we're heading here. So there's one idea using the April bead box. Give me one moment to flip my camera around and I'll take a look at some of these questions. One second, I always struggle to do this on my phone. Camera. Front camera. Already. Oh no, I'm so bad at this. There we go. All right, it should be updated now. Hey everyone.
It's chilly.
I know it's getting cold out here. Flora says, I hate crimping. I think, don't give up yet, Flora. Once you kind of figure it out, it gets a lot better and you'll start to trust your crimps. And that's kind of the feeling I know a lot of folks want to achieve, is they want to feel like they can really trust their crimp, because especially if you're like trying to sell your piece, even if you're trying to gift a piece, even if you are gifting a piece, you want the piece to last. So don't give up on yourself, Flora. Just give it a little bit more practice. You can get some cheaper crimp tubes and just practice a whole bunch of times. And make a whole bunch of bracelets. Make a bunch of simple bracelets. And after you make 10 bracelets, I bet you'll be twice as good at it. Okay. Anna Marie says she also hates crimping. I didn't know there was such a hatred today. Kathy said, what am I going to do with the AB flower connectors? Well, I forgot about them until this moment, Kathy. The original idea was to put them as pieces of the necklace. I will have to reassess. I might actually not want the pink in this piece. I think I'm gravitating towards the purples and greens. Judy says, are there any April boxes left to purchase? Yes, Jesse will probably be listing those pretty soon. So if you send us email or message us our Facebook page where we're streaming to right now, we can get you one of those April boxes. Rochelle says Marco for the kids playing Marco Polo again. I hope yours wasn't too bad. I hope it was more enjoyable than not enjoyable. Okay, scrolling back just a little bit more. All right, I think we've answered all the other questions. Awesome. Terry says, I always use a crimp cover. Is there a reason why you don't? The main reason is I don't mind the look of crimps, and I also mostly tend to make necklaces for myself. If I do a good enough doing the crimp job, like doing the crimping, I don't actually think it looks bad. I kind of just think it's like part of the piece. I know many folks will use crimp covers, and that's great. It's just not my habit. I have something I've used in the past though, and have also enjoyed using. So I guess I just currently not in the habit of it. Maybe that's what's the habit. I just haven't really been keeping them around. Maybe if I had them next to me, I would just throw one on. Lucinda said, is there a real difference in quality of crimps? Any suggest, or is it practicing techniques? My first bag of crimps I got in Thailand, and they were super thin and tiny. They're like maybe 1.5 millimeter. I think there's still some in this old tray of mine. Horrible. The next ones I tried were soft flex. Sterling 2 millimeter soft flex crimps are like one of the standard crimps in the bead world. I carry them in the shop, and they're fantastic. They're a little bit more expensive. I have also started experimenting more with some the Beadalon crimp tubes. They come in little packs like this and with a whole bunch of metals. I'm going to keep testing a little bit more, but I'm getting pretty more comfortable with them, and they're pretty more inexpensive than some of the soft flex ones. So don't tell Sarah, but on this piece, I'm using a beautiful soft flex wire in garnet because they have all the beautiful colors. And then I used some Beadalon crimps that happen to be what I have around, but they go together just fine. Naomi also doesn't like crimping. I'd have never heard of a tornado crimp. Bridget says, I'm a beadbox newbie. I'm so glad I signed up. Amazing selection of beads. Bridget, I'm so glad you liked your first, if it was your first box. If it was like a kind of a different one. So many different floral shapes, which we haven't done. It kind of just had a different feeling to it. I kind of think that's nice. It's sometimes nice when it almost feels a little more foreign to me. It's like, oh, how am I actually going to use these products together? The idea is that you can start to coordinate them together more easily. You don't have to think, you don't have to go digging through your stash as much. So I hope that was a help to you. Definitely helped me hear that I already had beads that I didn't have to go searching too much. I was like, no, I'm a little bit more confined, have the creative constraint of just using the box. So I hope you get some of our subscribe and get some of our future boxes, Bridget, because we've got some really fun ones coming. But with that, we're going to go ahead and end class. Thank you all so much for joining. If you're watching this on YouTube or watching the replay, please hit the like button, hit subscribe, leave a comment. It just like super helps the shop, and it helps give us a little more traction in the YouTube feed. It's just hard as a small shop to kind of reach new folks. So just those little things are such a help. Danielle in the comments. Bye, Danielle. Bye, Angela. I will see you all soon.